The snowflakes fell like ash over the warehouse district, silent and suffocating. I should have called an Uber. Should have waited inside the restaurant until my ride arrived instead of walking 3 blocks through the industrial side of downtown on Christmas Eve. But my phone was dead. My tips were burning a hole in my apron pocket, and I was tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from double shifts and forced smiles. The shortcut through the alley seemed harmless enough. String lights from a distant building cast faint gold across the brick walls. My breath fogged in front of me as I walked faster, boots crunching against fresh powder. That's when I heard it, a muffled shout. Then a sound I'd only heard in movies, a wet, brutal crack followed by silence so complete it felt like the world had stopped breathing. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. My body had turned traitor, rooted to the spot as my eyes adjusted to the darkness ahead. 3 men stood in a loose circle near a black SUV. One was on his knees, head bowed. Another held him by the collar. And the third stood apart, hands in the pockets of an expensive wool coat, watching with the detached interest of someone observing a chess match. Even from 30 feet away, I could feel the power radiating from him, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair dusted with snow. His face was all sharp angles and cold precision, illuminated by the dim glow of a nearby street lamp. He said something I couldn't hear. The man holding the kneeling figure nodded once, then drew a gun. My heart stopped. I should have looked away. Should have turned and run and pretended I'd never walked down this cursed alley. But I couldn't. I was trapped in the horror of it, watching as the man with the gun pressed the barrel against the back of the kneeling man's skull. "Please," the man on his knees sobbed. "Please, I have a family." "Then you should have thought of them before you stole from me." The voice came from the man in the coat. Low, calm, absolute. It cut through the night like a blade. I jerked backward, and my boot caught on a patch of ice. My arms windmilled as I struggled for balance, but it was too late. I went down hard, my bag spilling across the snow with a metallic clatter that echoed through the alley like a gunshot. Every head turned toward me. For a heartbeat, no one moved. We were all frozen in a tableau of mutual shock, me sprawled in the snow, them staring at the unexpected witness to their private execution. Then the man in the coat spoke again. "Bring her." Panic flooded my system. I scrambled to my feet, slipping twice before I finally found traction. I ran. God, I ran like I'd never run in my life, my lungs burning with cold air and terror. Heavy footsteps pounded behind me. I didn't dare look back. The alley opened onto a main street, and I could see cars passing, people walking, Christmas lights glowing warm and safe. A hand clamped around my arm and yanked me backward. I screamed, twisting violently, but the grip was iron. Another hand covered my mouth, muffling my cries as I was dragged back into the darkness. "Stop fighting," a rough voice growled in my ear. "You're only making this worse." I bit down hard on the fingers covering my mouth. The man cursed and released me just long enough for me to stumble forward, but there was nowhere to go. 2 more men had appeared, blocking my escape routes. "Please," I gasped, raising my shaking hands. "Please, I didn't see anything. I swear I didn't." "Liar." The word sliced through my desperate plea. He emerged from the shadows like something conjured from a nightmare. Up close, he was even more devastating and terrifying. His face could have been carved from marble, all brutal beauty and merciless angles. Dark eyes assessed me with the cold calculation of a predator deciding whether its prey was worth the effort. Snow dusted his black hair and the shoulders of his coat. He looked like some dark prince from a twisted fairy tale, beautiful and lethal in equal measure. "You saw everything," he continued, his voice dangerously soft. "The question is, what am I going to do about it?" My mouth went dry. "I won't tell anyone, I promise. I'll forget this ever happened. Please just let me go." "You'll forget?" One dark eyebrow lifted in sardonic amusement. "How convenient. Tell me, do you often witness murders and simply forget?" "I didn't witness," I started, but he held up one hand and I fell silent immediately. He stepped closer, and I instinctively backed up until my shoulders hit the brick wall. He followed, invading my space with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything in his life. "What's your name?" he asked. Sophie. Sophie Bennett." "Sophie Bennett." He repeated it slowly, as if tasting each syllable. "Do you know who I am?" I shook my head mutely. "Good. Let's keep it that way." He studied me for another long moment, his gaze tracking across my face with unnerving intensity. "You work at that Italian place on 5th Street, Romano's." It wasn't a question. Terror spiked through me. How did you— The apron. Still in your bag. He nodded toward my scattered belongings in the snow. You smell like garlic and marinara sauce. And there's flour on your jeans. I looked down automatically and saw he was right. Evidence of my double shift painted across my clothes. Here's what's going to happen. Sophie Bennett from Romano's. He leaned in, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made my traitorous body respond despite my terror. You're going to come with us. Quietly. Without a scene. And if I don't? His smile was all edges. Then we'll have a problem. And trust me, you don't want that. Are you going to kill me? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. Something flickered across his features, surprise. Maybe, or possibly respect. That depends entirely on you. Behind us, I heard the SUV engine start. One of his men appeared at his elbow, speaking in rapid Italian I couldn't follow. The man in the coat, their boss, obviously responded in the same language without taking his eyes off me. What's it going to be, Sophie? He asked. The easy way or the hard way? I looked past him toward the street, where normal people were living normal lives, completely unaware that someone's entire world was shattering just yards away. Then I looked back at him, at this beautiful, terrifying stranger who held my fate in his hands. The easy way, I whispered. His smile widened fractionally. Smart girl. He reached out and gripped my chin, tilting my face up to his. Remember this feeling, Sophie Bennett. Remember how powerless you are. Because as of this moment, your life belongs to me. Then he released me and stepped back. Get her in the car. We have a Christmas dinner to prepare for. The SUV's leather seats were cold against my back. Or maybe that was just the ice flooding my veins. I sat wedged between two silent men who smelled like gun oil and expensive cologne. The man from the alley, my captor, my nightmare, sat in the front passenger seat, speaking in low tones on his phone. Italian again, the words flowing like dark water. We drove through the city I'd lived in my entire life, but everything looked different through the tinted windows. Distorted, dreamlike. The Christmas lights blurred into streaks of red and green as we moved through traffic with unsettling ease, as if even the stoplights bent to this man's will. I tried to memorize the route, tried to think of escape plans, but my brain kept circling back to that moment in the alley, the man on his knees, the gun, the cold certainty in my captor's voice. Then you should have thought of them before you stole from me. What kind of man could order an execution on Christmas Eve with less emotion than someone ordering coffee? We're here, boss. The driver's announcement pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. The SUV rolled to a stop in front of a brownstone in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, the kind of building I'd walked past 1,000 times, wondering what kind of people lived behind those pristine facades. Now I was about to find out. Bring her inside, the man ordered without looking back. Put her in the guest room. I'll deal with her after I've handled the Rossi situation. Yes, Mr. Moretti. Moretti. The name hit me like a physical blow. Even I, who barely followed the news, knew that name. The Moretti family wasn't just connected, they were the connection. Old money. Old power. The kind of empire built on blood and silence. And I'd just witnessed their leader commit murder. Strong hands gripped my arms, hauling me out of the SUV. I stumbled on numb legs, my body finally catching up to the shock my mind had been drowning in. The brownstone loomed above me, all elegant architecture and menacing grandeur. Inside, the place was a study in contradictions. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Priceless art hung on walls, the color of cream. But beneath the luxury, I could feel it, the undercurrent of violence, the sense that beauty here was just another mask. They led me up a sweeping staircase to the second floor, down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. The guest room they shoved me into was bigger than my entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silver silk. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking a private garden. A gilded cage was still a cage. Don't try anything stupid, one of the men warned before closing the door. I heard the lock click, sealing me inside. I stood in the center of the room for a long moment, my mind refusing to process the reality of my situation. Then my legs gave out, and I sank onto the plush carpet, wrapping my arms around myself as I started to shake. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to people like me. I was nobody, a waitress with student loans and a dying houseplant. I wasn't supposed to be sitting in a mafia boss's guest room, prisoner to a man who could end my life with a phone call. Think, Sophie. Think. But all I could think about was his face. Those dark, merciless eyes that had looked at me like I was a problem to be solved. The way he'd gripped my chin, his touch somehow burning despite the cold night air. Your life belongs to me. A knock at the door made me jump. I scrambled to my feet as it opened. expecting one of the silent guards. Instead, a woman entered. She was perhaps 50, elegant in a black dress, her silver hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. She carried a garment bag and looked at me with something that might have been pity. "You must be Miss Bennet," she said, her accent placing her from somewhere in southern Italy. "I'm Maria. I manage Mr. Moretti's household." "Where is he?" My voice came out hoarse. "What does he want with me?" "He's conducting business." As for what he wants, Maria laid the garment bag across the bed with careful precision. "He asked me to prepare you." "Prepare me for what?" She unzipped the bag, revealing a dress that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Deep crimson silk that shimmered in the lamplight. "For dinner. The family gathers every Christmas Eve. It's tradition." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "Mr. Moretti's grandmother insists on maintaining certain appearances." Maria's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "The family expects him to arrive with a companion. You'll be playing that role." The absurdity of it hit me like a slap. "You're joking." "I assure you I'm not." She smoothed the dress with practiced hands. "There are shoes as well. And jewelry. Everything you'll need to look the part." "The part of what? His fake girlfriend? The word stuck in my throat. His fake wife? Fiancé, actually." The voice came from the doorway. I spun to find Moretti leaning against the frame, still in his coat, looking like he'd just stepped out of a magazine spread for Dangerous Men Monthly. He'd removed his gloves, and I noticed his hands for the first time. Strong, elegant, no blood on them, though I knew what they'd ordered done less than an hour ago. "Get out, Maria," he said quietly. The woman left without a word, closing the door behind her. Moretti stepped into the room, and suddenly the space felt too small. He circled me slowly, assessing, his presence sucking up all the air. "Here's the situation. Sophie Bennet," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "My grandmother is dying. This is likely her last Christmas. And she has one wish to see me settled before she goes. So buy an escort," I shot back, surprised by my own boldness. "Why drag me into this?" He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Because an escort would be a performance. Nona would see through it in seconds. But you—" One finger traced along my jaw, making me flinch. "You're terrified. You're real. And that genuine fear will read as nervousness about meeting the family. You're insane. Probably." He dropped his hand. "But you're going to do it anyway. One dinner. A few hours of playing the adoring fiancé. And then, if you convince my family, you walk away, free. And if I refuse?" His smile was all predator. "Then we'll have that problem I mentioned earlier." My heart hammered against my ribs. "You'd kill me over a Christmas dinner?" "I'd kill you to protect my empire. But I'd prefer not to." He moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "Get dressed, Sophie. We leave in an hour. And remember, your life depends on how well you can act like you love me." The door closed behind him, and I stood frozen, staring at the crimson dress that looked disturbingly like spilled blood. What the hell had I just agreed to? The dress fit like it had been made for me, which was somehow more unsettling than everything else that had happened tonight. I stared at my reflection in the full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. The crimson silk hugged every curve, elegant without being provocative. Maria had returned to help with my hair, sweeping it into a soft updo that made my neck look longer, more vulnerable. The diamond earrings she'd fastened in my ears caught the light with every breath. I looked like I belonged in Moretti's world. I looked like a beautiful lie. "He's waiting," Maria said softly, studying me with those knowing eyes. "A word of advice, Miss Bennet. Don't try to be someone you're not. Just soften the edges. The Morettis respect strength, but Nana wants to see her grandson happy. Show her that." "How am I supposed to show her something that doesn't exist?" Maria's expression was unreadable. "Sometimes the best lies are built on fragments of truth." She handed me a small clutch. "You'll do fine. You're stronger than you think." Before I could ask what she meant, the door opened and Moretti walked in. He'd changed into a black suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw freshly shaved. He looked every inch the powerful businessman, the respectable heir to a legitimate fortune. But I'd seen what lurked beneath that polished exterior. His eyes swept over me, lingering just long enough to make heat crawl up my neck. "Perfect," he murmured. "You'll do. I'm so glad I meet your standards," I said, unable to keep the bite from my voice. Something flickered across his face, amusement maybe. "The fire is good. Nonna will like that. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that made my breath catch. An emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. The kind of ring that represented promises and futures and everything this night was mocking. "Give me your hand," he ordered. I hesitated, then extended my left hand. His fingers were warm as they gripped mine, steady as he slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, of course, because apparently, this man controlled even the laws of probability. "There are rules," he said, still holding my hand. "You don't leave my side. You don't speak to anyone without me present. And most importantly," his grip tightened fractionally, "you smile. You touch me like you can't help yourself. You look at me like I'm the only man in the room. Can you do that? I'm not an actress. Tonight you are." He pulled me closer, his other hand settling on my waist. "And your life depends on how well you perform." The threat should have terrified me. Instead, something else coiled in my stomach, something dangerous that felt disturbingly like anticipation. "What if I mess up?" I whispered. "Then we'll both pay the price." His thumb traced small circles on my waist, the gesture almost tender. "My family doesn't forgive deception easily. If they suspect this is fake, they'll dig into your background. They'll find your apartment, your friends, your routine, and they'll use every piece of information to ensure your silence." The implication was clear. "You're saying they'd hurt the people I care about. I'm saying my family protects itself. Always." He released me, stepping back. "So we both have reasons to make this convincing. Understand?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Good." He offered his arm like a gentleman, the irony not lost on me. "Time to meet the family, Tesoro." The Moretti estate was 30 minutes outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and walls covered in winter ivy. As we drove up the long driveway, I caught glimpses of the mansion through the trees, a sprawling Mediterranean villa that looked like it had been transported from the Italian countryside. Luxury cars lined the circular drive. Through the windows, I could see people moving about, the warm glow of chandeliers and Christmas lights making the scene look deceptively welcoming. "Remember," Moretti said as the SUV stopped, "you're nervous but happy, in love but overwhelmed. And my name is Dante." Dante. Of course it was. Named after the poet who wrote about circles of hell. The irony was almost funny. "How did we meet?" I asked, realizing I had no idea what story he'd concocted. 6 months ago. You were working at Romano's. I came in after a business meeting, and you spilled wine on my jacket." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You were mortified. I was charmed. I came back every week until you agreed to dinner." The story was so simple, so believable, that it made my chest ache. In another life, in another world, maybe it could have been true. The door opened. Dante, I had to think of him as Dante now, stepped out and offered his hand. I took it, letting him help me from the SUV. The December air bit through the thin silk, making me shiver. Immediately, his jacket settled around my shoulders, still warm from his body, and smelling of that dark cologne. "Can't have you freezing," he murmured, his hand finding the small of my back. Nonna would never forgive me. We walked toward the entrance, and I felt the weight of his family's world pressing down on me. Through the windows, I could see them beautiful, elegant people who moved through wealth and power like it was oxygen. The door opened before we reached it. A woman stood in the entrance, perhaps 30, with the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. Her smile was sharp as she took us both in. "Dante," she purred. "We were beginning to think you'd stood us up, and this must be the mysterious Sophie we've heard absolutely nothing about." "Careful, Valentina," Dante said, his tone light but laced with warning. "Your jealousy is showing." "Jealousy? Please." Valentina's eyes raked over me with undisguised assessment. "I'm simply curious about the woman who finally tamed the untamable Dante Moretti. Come inside, both of you. Nonna is waiting." We stepped into the entrance hall, and I was immediately surrounded by warmth, light, and the low hum of conversation in Italian. People turned to look at us, their gazes calculating, curious, predatory. Dante's hand tightened on my waist, pulling me closer to his side. To anyone watching, it would look protective, possessive, the gesture of a man in love, but I felt the tension in his body, the coiled readiness of someone expecting an attack. "Smile," he whispered against my ear. "Showtime." I plastered on a smile as he led me deeper into the house, into the heart of the Moretti Empire, where one wrong move could cost me everything. And then I saw her, the woman in the wheelchair at the center of the room, her white hair gleaming in the firelight, her dark eyes sharp as she studied me with the intensity of a queen evaluating a potential heir. Nonna Moretti. She smiled, and every instinct I had screamed danger. So, she said in accented English, her voice still strong despite her frail body. This is the girl my grandson claims to love. Come closer, child. Let me see if you're worthy of a Moretti. Nonna Moretti's eyes were the same dark, penetrating shade as Dante's, but where his held cold calculation, hers held ancient wisdom, and something far more dangerous: experience. Come. Come. She beckoned with a frail hand adorned with rings that probably had their own bloody histories. Don't be shy, Bambina. I don't bite. Dante's hand pressed against my back, urging me forward. I crossed the room on unsteady legs, acutely aware that every person in this space was watching, judging, waiting for me to slip. I stopped in front of Nana's wheelchair, unsure whether to curtsy or shake her hand or simply run screaming from this nightmare. She solved the problem by reaching up and gripping my chin, the same gesture Dante had used in the alley, and I realized with a chill where he'd learned it. Let me look at you. She turned my face from side to side, studying me like a jeweler appraising a stone. Pretty enough. Good bone structure. But beauty fades. See? Tell me, Sophie Bennett, what makes you think you're worthy of my grandson? The question was a trap. I could feel it. I don't think I'm worthy, I said, and the tremor in my voice wasn't entirely feigned. I think I'm just lucky he chose me. Nana's eyes narrowed. Lucky. Interesting choice of words. She released my chin and sat back. Dante, why don't you get us some wine? I wish to speak with your fidanzata alone. Nonna, Dante started, tension threading through his voice. Alone, Dante. Her tone left no room for argument. Or do you not trust me with your precious love? The room had gone silent. I could feel the weight of the family's attention, the unspoken test playing out before them. If Dante refused, it would confirm their suspicions. If he agreed, I'd be thrown to the wolves without protection. His hand squeezed my waist, once a warning or reassurance. I couldn't tell. Of course, Nonna. Whatever you wish. Then he was gone. And I was alone with a woman who'd probably ordered more deaths than I'd served dinners. Sit. Nonna gestured to the ottoman beside her wheelchair. I sat, folding my hands in my lap to hide their shaking. The emerald on my finger caught the firelight, a beautiful shackle. 6 months, Nonna said thoughtfully. That's how long Dante claims you've been together. Yet you've never met his family. Why? He wanted to be sure, I answered, praying the lie sounded natural. Before bringing me into this world, she smiled, showing teeth that were still sharp despite her age. And what world is that, Kara? Another trap, a world of tradition, family, expectations. Clever girl. Nonna leaned forward, her gaze pinning me in place. But not clever enough. You're terrified. I can smell it on you like cheap perfume. So let me ask you plainly, does my grandson frighten you? My mouth went dry. The truth would condemn me, but a lie would condemn me faster. Yes, I whispered. The admission hung in the air between us. I waited for her to call the guards, to expose the charade, to end this nightmare. Instead, she laughed, a dry, rasping sound that held genuine amusement. Benet. Good. She patted my hand with her papery fingers. Any woman who isn't afraid of Dante Moretti is either a fool or a liar. The question is, do you fear him because of who he is, or despite it? I stared at her, unable to form words. Let me tell you something about my grandson, Nonna continued, her voice dropping to something almost conspiratorial. He has carried this family on his shoulders since he was 23 years old. When his father died, Dante inherited an empire built on blood and tradition. He has made choices no man should have to make. He has sacrificed everything for the Moretti name. Her grip on my hand tightened, surprising strength in those ancient fingers. And in all that time, I have never seen him look at a woman the way he looked at you when he walked through that door. My heart stuttered. You don't have to say anything. I can see it, even if he can't yet. She released my hand and sat back. Love is a weakness in our world, Sophie. It makes men vulnerable. It gives enemies leverage. But it's also the only thing that makes this life bearable. Footsteps approached, and Dante reappeared with 2 glasses of wine. His eyes found mine immediately, scanning for damage, assessing the situation. We were just getting to know each other, Nonna said sweetly. Sophie is delightful, Nipote. You've chosen well. The relief that flashed across Dante's face was so brief I almost missed it. He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing mine in a gesture that might have looked tender but felt like a question. Are you okay? I nodded slightly, taking a sip of wine I didn't want. Everyone, Nonna called out, her voice carrying through the room. Come meet my grandson's future wife properly. It's time we welcomed her to the family. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions. Cousins, aunts, uncles, associates, all with sharp eyes and sharper questions. Dante never left my side, his presence a constant anchor as I navigated conversations about wedding dates and family traditions, and how we'd raise our hypothetical children. Each lie came easier than the last, which terrified me almost as much as the truth. Valentina appeared at one point, her smile predatory as she pulled me aside while Dante was speaking with his uncle. You're doing well, she said, handing me a fresh glass of champagne. Better than I expected, honestly. Thank you. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or another test, but let me give you some advice, Sophie. Woman to woman. She leaned in close, her voice dropping. Dante Moretti doesn't let people close. He doesn't do relationships. He doesn't do love. So whatever game you're playing, whatever angle you're working— I'm not playing anything, I interrupted, surprising myself with the heat in my voice. Valentina's eyebrows rose. No? Then you're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, because loving a man like Dante will destroy you. I've seen it happen before. Before? The word slipped out before I could stop it. Something cold flickered in Valentina's expression. Ask him about Elena sometime. If he doesn't kill you first. She walked away, leaving me standing alone with a name that felt like a curse and champagne that tasted like poison. Across the room, Dante's eyes found mine. His expression shifted concern, then question, then something darker as he noticed Valentina's retreating form. He started toward me, but Nana's voice rang out. Dante, come here, tesoro. Your cousin Marco wants to discuss business. Dante's jaw tightened, but he obeyed, leaving me vulnerable in a room full of predators. And I stood there, drowning in champagne and lies, wondering who Elena was and why the mere mention of her name made my stomach twist with something that felt disturbingly like jealousy. I needed air. The walls of the Moretti mansion were closing in, suffocating me with their warmth and luxury, and the weight of too many watching eyes. Elena's name echoed in my head like a warning bell, mixing with Valentina's cruel smile and Nana's knowing looks until I couldn't think straight. I slipped through a side door into what appeared to be a conservatory, glass walls revealing a winter garden beyond. The cold hit me immediately, but I welcomed it. Anything to clear my head. String lights wound through bare branches, casting everything in a soft golden glow. Snow had started falling again, fat flakes drifting past the glass like captured stars. A stone path led through dormant rose bushes toward a fountain that had been drained for winter. I walked deeper into the garden, my heels clicking against frozen stone, until the sounds of the party faded to a dull murmur. Out here, I could almost pretend I was somewhere else. Someone else. Not a prisoner playing dress-up in a dead woman's role. Because that's what this felt like, wasn't it? Valentina's words had confirmed what I'd suspected. I wasn't the first woman to stand in Dante's world, trying to fit into spaces that would never accept me. You're supposed to stay inside. I spun around. Dante stood at the conservatory door, his jacket unbuttoned, his tie slightly loosened. He looked almost human in the soft light, the harsh edges of his face gentled by shadow. Almost. I needed a minute, I said, wrapping my arms around myself. His jacket was still inside, and the silk dress provided zero protection against the December cold. He crossed the distance between us in long strides, shrugging out of his suit jacket and draping it over my shoulders for the second time that night. The gesture was becoming familiar, which scared me more than it should. You're doing well, he said quietly. Better than I expected. That's what Valentina said. Right before, she warned me that loving you would destroy me. I turned to face him fully, anger mixing with something more complicated in my chest. Who's Elena? The change in his expression was immediate. Every trace of softness vanished, replaced by the cold mask I'd first seen in the alley. That's none of your concern. Really? Because your cousin seems to think it's very much my concern. She said I should ask you about her. So I'm asking. Drop it. Sophie, why? What happened to her? I stepped closer, reckless with champagne and exhaustion, and the surreal insanity of this entire night. Did you love her? Did she love you? Did your world destroy her like Valentina promised it would destroy me? I said drop it. His voice was lethal, but I was past caring. I'm risking everything for you tonight. My life depends on convincing your family that we're in love. Don't I deserve to know what happened to the last woman who tried? For a moment, I thought he might walk away. Or worse, that he might hurt me. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, and I could see the muscle jumping in his jaw. Then, Suddenly, the fight went out of him. Elena was my fiancée, he said, the words sounding like they were being torn from somewhere deep. 5 years ago. Before I took over the family completely, she was... He paused, his throat working. She was kind, soft, everything this world isn't. Snow continued to fall around us, creating a curtain of white that made the moment feel suspended, separate from reality. What happened? I asked more gently. She loved me, really loved me. Despite everything she knew about my family, she thought love would be enough. His laugh was bitter. It wasn't. My enemies found out about her. They took her to get to me, to force my hand in a territory dispute. My stomach dropped. Dante. I got her back, but by then she'd seen too much, experienced too much. The things they did to her. His voice cracked, and I saw genuine anguish flash across his face before he locked it down. She couldn't live with what she'd witnessed, what she'd become. 3 months after I rescued her, she drove her car off a bridge. The confession hung between us, heavy and terrible. I'm sorry, I whispered, because what else could I say? Don't be. It taught me an important lesson. He looked at me then, his eyes hollow. Love is a liability in my world. It gets people killed, so I don't do it anymore. I don't let anyone close enough to become a target. Then why this? I gestured between us, at the charade we were performing. Why drag me into this if you've sworn off relationships? Because Nana is dying, and her last wish is to see me settled. Because maintaining certain appearances keeps the family stable. Because... He stopped, his jaw tightening. Because what? Because you're temporary. The words were cruel, calculated to hurt. You'll play this role tonight, and then you'll disappear. No attachments, no complications. No one else dies because of me. I should have been relieved. This was what I wanted. Confirmation that after tonight, I'd walk away free. No strings, no consequences. So why did his words feel like a knife between my ribs? I understand, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. Do you? He stepped closer, and suddenly the air between us felt charged, dangerous. Because you're looking at me like what? Like you're trying to fix me, like you see something worth saving. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my cheek. Don't, Sophie, don't make the same mistake Elena did. I'm not Elena, I said, the words coming from some brave, foolish part of me I didn't know existed. And I'm not trying to save you. I'm just trying to survive you. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or recognition. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt the touch everywhere, a spark that threatened to ignite something neither of us could control. You're trembling, he murmured. I'm cold. Liar. But his other hand settled on my waist, pulling me against his warmth. You're terrified. Of me, of this, of what you're starting to feel. I don't feel anything, I lied. No? His breath ghosted across my lips, close enough to kiss but not quite touching. Then why is your heart racing? Why are you leaning into me instead of pulling away? Because I was an idiot. Because this night had broken something in my brain. Because standing in this frozen garden with a killer who looked at me like I was both his salvation and his damnation felt more real than anything in my entire safe, boring life. Dante. The conservatory door burst open. Boss. One of his men stood there, his face grim. We've got a problem. Marco's been making calls. He knows something's wrong, and he's asking questions about Sophie. Dante's arms dropped from around me instantly, his expression shifting back to cold calculation. How much does he know? Enough to be dangerous. Dante cursed in Italian, already moving toward the house. Then he stopped, turned back to me. Stay close to me. No matter what happens at dinner, don't leave my side. Understand? I nodded, suddenly ice cold for reasons that had nothing to do with the weather. Because, as we walked back inside, I realized the real danger wasn't from the enemies outside the Moretti Empire. It was from the ones sitting at their table. The dining room was a masterpiece of old-world elegance. Mahogany table stretching 20 feet, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across china that probably cost more than my yearly rent. But all I could focus on was Marco Moretti, seated directly across from me, watching with eyes that missed nothing. He was perhaps 40, handsome in a dangerous way, with silver threading through his dark hair. Every time I glanced up, I found him studying me like a puzzle he was determined to solve. Dante's hand rested on my thigh beneath the table. A possessive claim that should have annoyed me, but instead felt like an anchor in a churning sea. So, Sophie, Marco said, his English perfect but laced with something sharp. Tell us about your family. Your parents must be so proud of this engagement. The table quieted, all attention swinging toward me. My parents are dead, I said, the truth slipping out before I could craft something safer. Car accident when I was 19. A flash of something sympathy? Calculation? Crossed Marco's face. I'm sorry. That must have been difficult. It was. I reached for my wine glass, needing something to do with my shaking hands. But I managed. Alone? Valentina asked from down the table, her tone deceptively sweet. No siblings? No other family? Just me. How convenient, Marco murmured. So quietly I almost missed it. Dante's hand tightened on my thigh, a warning. Leave it alone, Marco. I'm simply getting to know your lovely fiancé, cousin. Marco smiled, but it was all teeth. After all, she'll be family soon. We should understand who we're welcoming into the fold. Indeed. An older man, Dante's uncle Giorgio, leaned forward. 6 months is quite a whirlwind romance, especially for a man who's been so resistant to commitment. The subtext was clear. We know something's wrong. When you know, Dante said smoothly, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my leg that were definitely not idle. Isn't that right, Tessero? He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes, a plea, maybe, or a warning. Help me sell this. I tried to resist. I heard myself say, my voice steadier than I felt. I knew his world was different from mine. I knew it would be complicated. But he kept coming back to the restaurant. Every Friday night, same table, same order. The details spilled out, half-truth and half-fabrication weaving together. He'd stay until closing, making terrible jokes and leaving ridiculous tips. My boss thought he was insane. I thought he was trouble. And yet here you are, Nana said from the head of the table, her sharp eyes glittering. What changed your mind? I looked at Dante, at this beautiful, deadly man who dragged me into his nightmare, and found myself caught in his dark gaze. For a moment, the lie and the truth blurred together. He asked me why I was afraid of him, I said softly. I told him it was because men like him destroyed women like me. And he said, I paused, remembering his words in the garden. He said he understood, that I was right to be afraid, but that he'd never forgive himself if he didn't at least try. The silence that followed was profound. Even Marco seemed momentarily thrown. How romantic, Valentina said, but the edge in her voice had dulled slightly. See, very romantic. Nana dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. That's my Dante. Stubborn as his grandfather. When he wants something, nothing stops him. The servers brought the first course, some kind of seafood in a cream sauce that smelled divine but tasted like ash in my mouth. Conversation shifted to business, to territories and shipments and coded language I didn't understand but recognized as dangerous. Marco continued to watch me, though. I felt his attention like a physical weight. You know, he said during a lull in conversation, I had someone run a background check on you, Sophie. Standard procedure for anyone joining the family. My blood turned to ice. Dante went completely still beside me. And, Dante's voice was lethal calm, and she's exactly who she says she is. Sophie Bennett, 26, waitress at Romano's. Parents deceased, no siblings, no criminal record. Utterly unremarkable. Marco's smile was razor-sharp, almost too unremarkable, like someone who spent her whole life being invisible. What's your point? I asked, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. No point. Just an observation. He took a sip of wine. It's just interesting that my cousin who has access to the most beautiful, connected women in the city would fall for someone so ordinary. The insult hung in the air, deliberate and cutting. Watch yourself, Marco, Dante warned. No, it's fine. I set down my fork, meeting Marco's gaze directly. You're right. I am ordinary. I don't have connections or family money or any of the things you people value. But that's exactly why Dante chose me. Oh? Marco leaned back, intrigued despite himself. Enlighten me, because I don't want anything from him. The words came from somewhere deep, and I realized with a chill that they were partially true. I don't care about his money, or his power, or his name. I care about the man who sits in my section every Friday, and asks about my day like he actually gives a damn. The man who remembers that I hate olives and love terrible rom-coms and dream of opening my own restaurant someday. I turned to Dante, who was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I fell in love with the version of you that exists when you're not being Dante Moretti, head of the family. The version that's just Dante. And maybe I'm a fool for it, like Valentina says. Maybe this world will destroy me. But at least I'll have had something real, even if it's brief. The confession, half performance, half something terrifyingly genuine left me breathless. Nana was openly crying now. Several of the women were dabbing their eyes. Even Giorgio looked moved. Only Marco remained unmoved, his expression unreadable. "Well," he finally said, "either you're the best actress I've ever seen, or you're genuinely in love with my cousin. I haven't decided which yet. Does it matter?" I asked. "Very much." He stood, raising his glass. "But for tonight, let's toast. To Dante and Sophie. May their love survive the storms ahead." Everyone raised their glasses, echoing the toast. But as I lifted mine, I caught Valentina's expression fear, mixed with something like pity. And I noticed that Marco's toast hadn't been a blessing. It had been a warning. We were halfway through the main course when Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and every trace of color drained from his face. "Excuse me," he said, standing abruptly. "I need to take this." He walked out, leaving me alone at a table full of predators who'd just been given reason to doubt our story. Marco smiled at me across the table, and it was the smile of a hunter who'd finally spotted his prey's weakness. "So, Sophie," he said pleasantly, "while Dante's gone, why don't you tell me about the man you saw him kill tonight?" The room went absolutely silent, and I realized with horrifying clarity that I'd just walked into a trap far more deadly than I'd imagined. Every eye at the table turned to me. The clinking of silverware stopped. Even the servers froze in their tracks. Marco's smile widened, predatory and victorious. "No response? How interesting." My mind raced, searching for escape routes, excuses, anything. But there was nowhere to run. No story that would explain away what he clearly already knew. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed, but my voice shook. "Don't you?" Marco leaned forward, elbows on the table. "See, I have men positioned throughout the city. One of them happened to be near the warehouse district tonight. He saw something very interesting, my cousin and his men dealing with a traitor. And a woman. A woman who witnessed the execution and then got into Dante's SUV." Nana's expression had shifted from warm to glacial. "Marco, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that Sophie Bennett wasn't Dante's girlfriend 6 months ago. She wasn't his girlfriend 6 hours ago." Marco's voice carried through the room like a death sentence. "She's a witness, a liability, and somehow she ended up here, wearing his ring, playing the loving fiancé." Valentina gasped. Giorgio's hand moved toward something under the table, a gun, probably. The other family members shifted, some standing, all watching me with expressions that ranged from shock to cold calculation. "That's quite an accusation," I said, proud that I managed to keep my voice steady even as my world collapsed. "Based on what? The word of someone who saw a woman get into a car? Based on this." Marco pulled out his phone, swiping through images. He turned it toward the table, and my stomach dropped. It was me. In the alley. The photograph was grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Me on my knees in the snow, Dante's men surrounding me. Moments after the execution. "You see?" Marco's voice was almost gentle. "I knew something was wrong the moment you walked in. Dante doesn't do love. He doesn't do relationships. Not after Elena. But this..." He gestured at me. "This makes sense. A witness who needed to disappear. What better way than to hide her in plain sight?" "Marco." Nana's voice cut through the chaos. "Enough. Let Dante explain when he returns." "Why wait?" Marco stood, circling the table toward me. "I'm simply protecting the family, Nana. This woman is a threat. She's seen too much. And for all we know, she's already talking to the police." "I haven't told anyone anything," I said, pushing back from the table. "I swear. Your word means nothing here." Marco was close now, too close. "You're not family. You're not even a willing participant. You're a prisoner playing a role to save her own skin." The truth of it hung in the air, undeniable. "So the question becomes," Marco continued, "what do we do with you?" "You do nothing." Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stood in the doorway. And the man I'd glimpsed in the garden, the one carrying Elena's ghost, was gone. This was the Mafia boss. Cold, lethal, absolutely in control. "She's under my protection," he continued, moving into the room with predatory grace. "Anyone who touches her answers to me." "Your protection?" Marco laughed. "Dante, be reasonable. She's a witness to a murder. The rules are clear." "I don't care about the rules." Dante's voice dropped to something dangerous. "She's mine. That's all anyone needs to know." The possessive declaration should have terrified me. Instead, something warm and foolish unfurled in my chest. "This is insane," Giorgio interjected. "Dante, we understand you were trying to handle a difficult situation, But you can't seriously expect us to accept a witness into the family. I don't expect anything. I'm telling you how it is. Dante's hand found my shoulder, pulling me against his side. Sophie isn't going anywhere. Not tonight. Not ever. Then you're a fool, Marco spat. You're choosing some random woman over your family? Over everything we've built? I'm choosing her because she's the first person in 5 years who's looked at me and seen something other than a weapon. The confession came out raw, honest in a way that made everyone in the room shift uncomfortably. Because when I told her about Elena, she didn't flinch. She didn't try to fix me or save me. She just understood. He turned to me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. You asked me in the garden why I brought you here, he said quietly. The truth is, I could have handled this a dozen different ways. I could have paid you off, threatened you, made you disappear. But when I looked at you in that alley terrified and defiant and so damn alive, I saw something I thought I'd lost the right to want. Dante, I whispered, not sure if this was still part of the act or something more dangerous. I saw hope. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I'm selfish enough to want to keep it. This is ridiculous, Marco said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Nana, you can't possibly… Enough. Nana's command silenced the room. She studied us both for a long moment, her ancient eyes seeing far too much. Then, slowly, she smiled. Marco, sit down. Sophie stays. Nana, I said sit. Her voice cracked like a whip. I'm not dead yet, and while I still draw breath, I decide who is family and who is not. Marco sat, rage simmering beneath his controlled expression. Nana wheeled herself closer to us, looking up at Dante with a mixture of love and exasperation. You inherited your grandfather's stubbornness, and his terrible taste in dramatic gestures. She turned to me. But if my grandson is willing to risk everything for you, then perhaps you're worth the risk. Thank you, I managed. Don't thank me yet, Bambina. Her expression hardened. You've seen things you shouldn't have. You know secrets that could destroy us. If you stay, if you truly become part of this family, there is no going back. No changing your mind. No escape. Do you understand? I looked at Dante. At this impossible man who dragged me into hell and somehow made me want to stay. At the family watching us, with varying degrees of hostility and curiosity. At the future I hadn't asked for but was suddenly being offered. Every rational part of my brain screamed to refuse, to beg them to let me go, to return to my small, safe life. But as Dante's hand tightened on mine, I felt the truth crystallizing in my chest like ice. I was already lost. I understand, I said. Then welcome to the family. Nana raised her glass. God help you both. The room erupted, some in celebration, others in protest. But I barely heard it over the sound of my own heartbeat, and Dante's whispered words against my ear. I meant what I said. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and every ounce of warmth vanished from his expression. We need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Someone just leaked your identity to the Rossi family. His voice was ice. They know you witnessed the execution, and they're coming for you. The manor erupted into controlled chaos. Dante barked orders in rapid Italian as his men materialized from shadows I hadn't known they occupied. Guns appeared. Doors locked. The women were ushered toward what I assumed was a safe room. But Dante's grip on my wrist prevented me from following. She stays with me, he said when Giorgio tried to redirect me. Dante, be reasonable. I said she stays. His tone left no room for argument. We moved through the manor like a small army, Dante at the center, me pulled along in his wake. My heels clicked frantically against marble as I struggled to keep pace. How did they find out? I gasped. I don't know. But we'll find who leaked it, and I'll make them wish they'd never been born. The promise in his voice was absolute. We reached what looked like his private office, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk that probably cost more than my car. He released me long enough to pull open a drawer and retrieve a gun, checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. Do you know how to use one of these? He held out a smaller weapon. I stared at it, my hands trembling. No. Then stay behind me. Don't leave my sight. If someone gets past my men… Dante. I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me. What's happening? Who are the Rossis? Rival family. The man in the alley worked for them. He was stealing from me, feeding them information about my operations. His jaw clenched. They'll want revenge for his death. And they'll want you dead so you can't testify about what you saw. But I would never. They don't know that. They only know you're a witness and a weakness they can exploit. He cupped my face, his touch surprisingly gentle despite the violence humming through his body. I won't let them touch you, I swear it. The window exploded inward. Glass rained down as Dante threw me to the ground, covering my body with his. Gunfire erupted sharp cracks that made my ears ring. I couldn't see anything beyond Dante's broad shoulders and the carpet beneath my face. Stay down, he commanded, then returned fire with calm precision. More shots, shouting in Italian. The acrid smell of gunpowder. I pressed my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut like a child hiding from monsters. Except these monsters were real, and they wanted me dead. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. Dante rose in one fluid motion, pulling me up with him. We're leaving. They're trying to box us in. Where? Trust me. He led me to a bookshelf, pressed something hidden, and the entire unit swung inward to reveal a narrow passage. Go. Now. I ducked into the darkness, and he followed, sealing the entrance behind us. Emergency lighting flickered on, illuminating a tunnel that sloped downward. What is this? My voice echoed off stone walls. Escape route. My grandfather built it during a war with the Calabrese family in the 70s. His hand found mine in the dimness. Stay close. We ran through the tunnel, my heels abandoned somewhere behind us, my stockinged feet slipping on cold stone. The passage seemed endless, twisting and turning until I lost all sense of direction. Finally, we emerged into an underground garage housing several vehicles. Dante grabbed keys from a hidden panel and gestured to a black Mercedes. Get in. I was barely seated before he peeled out, the car's engine roaring as we shot up a ramp and onto a service road behind the estate. In the rearview mirror, I could see flames the manor was burning. Your family. They're safe. The tunnel has multiple exits. Marco will handle the evacuation. His hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. But we can't go back. Not until I know who betrayed us. Where are we going? Safe house. Somewhere even my family doesn't know about. We drove in tense silence through back roads, snow falling heavier now, coating everything in white. My body was crashing from adrenaline, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Dante noticed. He cranked the heat and reached over to squeeze my hand. You're okay. You're safe. People just tried to kill me. My laugh was slightly hysterical. How is that okay? Because you're still breathing. Still here. His voice roughened. When that window exploded, when I realized they were inside, he didn't finish. But his grip on my hand tightened painfully. We drove for another hour, eventually pulling up to a cabin hidden deep in the woods. Isolated. Remote. The kind of place where no one would hear you scream. Inside, the cabin was surprisingly well appointed. Modern kitchen, comfortable furniture, a stone fireplace that Dante quickly got burning, but the windows were reinforced, and I spotted cameras positioned around the perimeter, a gilded cage with better amenities. There's food in the pantry, clothes in the bedroom. Dante moved to the windows, checking each one methodically. We'll stay here until I can sort out the leak and neutralize the Rossi threat. How long will that take? Days, maybe weeks. He turned to face me, and in the firelight, he looked exhausted, haunted. I'm sorry, Sophie. You didn't ask for any of this. No, I didn't. I moved closer, drawn by something I couldn't name. But you did warn me. In the garden, you told me this world destroys people. I did. And yet here we are. Here we are. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I should have let you go. Should have found another way. But I'm not that noble. What are you? I asked, my heart hammering. Selfish, dangerous, completely wrong for you. His thumb traced my lower lip. Everything you should run from. I notice you're not giving me the option to run, because I can't. The confession was raw. I tried, Sophie. I tried to keep my distance, to treat this like a business arrangement. But when those bullets started flying, when I realized they were targeting you, he pulled me against him suddenly, desperately, his face buried in my hair. I can't lose you too, he whispered. I can't watch another woman die because of me. My arms came around him instinctively, holding this broken, dangerous man who'd somehow become my entire world in the span of a single night. I'm not Elena, I said softly. I'm not going anywhere. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes searching mine. You should. You should hate me for everything I've put you through. I should, I agreed. But I don't. The space between us charged with electricity. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my face up. Sophie, don't. I rose on my toes, closing the distance. Don't think. Don't plan. Just, he kissed me. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was consuming, desperate. 5 years of loneliness and one night of terror pouring into a single moment. His hands gripped me like I might disappear, and I kissed him back with equal desperation, tasting danger and desire and something that felt dangerously close to fate. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. "This changes everything," he murmured. "I know. There's no going back after this." "I know," I whispered again. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. With a curse, he checked it, then every ounce of color drained from his face. "What?" I asked, fear spiking through me. He turned the phone toward me, and my blood turned to ice. It was a photo of my apartment, my bedroom, specifically, with a message. "We know where she lives. We know where she works. Tell her to come forward, or everyone she's ever known dies. You have 48 hours. They're going to kill everyone I know," I whispered. Dante's expression was murderous. "Not if I kill them first." I stared at the photo of my bedroom, my safe space, violated by strangers, and felt something inside me crack. "My coworkers," I said, my voice hollow. "Lisa has 2 kids. Marco just got engaged. They're innocent. They don't know anything." "I know." Dante was already dialing, his expression carved from stone. "I'll have men positioned at the restaurant, at their homes. 24-hour protection. For how long? Forever?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "You can't protect everyone I've ever met, Dante. There are too many people, too many vulnerabilities. The Rossis know that." He lowered the phone, his jaw tight. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe I should just turn myself in. Go to the police. Tell them everything." "Absolutely not." He crossed the distance between us in 2 strides. "You'd be dead before you reached the station. The Rosses have cops on their payroll, judges, prosecutors. You think the law will protect you? Then what's the alternative? Let innocent people die because I witnessed something I shouldn't have." Tears burned behind my eyes. "I can't live with that, Dante. I won't. You won't have to." His hands gripped my shoulders. "I'll end this. The Rossis want a war? I'll give them one they can't survive. More death, more violence. When does it stop? It doesn't." The brutal honesty in his voice cut deeper than any lie could have. "This is my world, Sophie. Blood and power and debts paid in corpses. I warned you. I know what you warned me." I shoved against his chest, anger flooding through the fear. "You warned me this world destroys people, that loving you is a death sentence, that I should run while I still could. Well, guess what? I can't run anymore. There's nowhere to go. So either help me find a solution, or let me go to the police and at least save some lives." The silence that followed was deafening. Dante stared at me, something raw and desperate working across his features. Then quietly, "There might be another way." "What way?" "The Rossis want you because you're a witness, because your testimony could hurt them if this ever goes to trial." He released me, pacing to the window. "But what if you weren't a witness anymore? I don't understand. What if you were family?" He turned to face me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "My wife, protected under the same code that protects every other Moretti. Untouchable." The words hung between us, impossible and insane. "That's crazy," I whispered. "We barely know each other. This whole thing started as a fake engagement and became something else." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "You felt it. That kiss wasn't fake, Sophie. Nothing between us has been fake since the moment you looked at me in that alley and refused to beg. Dante, marry me, for real this time." His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Not for my grandmother, not for appearances. Marry me, because it's the only way I can keep you alive. The only way I can protect everyone you care about. By making me one of you? By dragging me permanently into this nightmare? Yes. No apology. No softening. Just brutal truth. I'm offering you protection, resources, power, a life where you'll never be vulnerable again, where the people you love are shielded by the Moretti name. And what do you get out of this arrangement?" I asked, trying to ignore how my heart was racing. His thumb traced my cheekbone. "You, in my life, in my bed, in my world, where I can see you, touch you, know you're safe." His voice roughened, "Where I don't have to imagine you dying like Elena did. This isn't love, Dante. This is possession." Maybe. He didn't deny it. But I'm done lying to myself about what I want. I want you, safe, alive, mine, and I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. The cabin suddenly felt too small, too hot, I pulled away from him, needing space to think. You're asking me to give up everything. My freedom, my life, any chance at normalcy. I'm asking you to survive. He followed me, relentless. Everything else is negotiable. You want to keep working? Fine. You want your own space? I'll buy you an entire building. You want to see your friends? I'll make sure they're protected. Whatever you need, it's yours. The only non-negotiable is that you stay alive. By becoming Mrs. Dante Moretti. Yes, I laughed, slightly hysterical. This morning I was worried about making rent. Now I'm being proposed to by a mafia boss in a secret cabin, while his enemies threaten everyone I know. How is this my life? Bad luck. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Or fate, depending on how you look at it. And if I say no, the smile vanished. Then I use every resource I have to protect you anyway. But without the protection of marriage, without you officially being family, there will always be gaps. Vulnerabilities. Moments where I can't reach you in time. Like Elena, he didn't say. But I heard it anyway. I moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames, trying to sort through the chaos in my head. 24 hours ago, I'd been nobody, invisible, safe in my small, boring existence. Now I was being offered a devil's bargain, safety and protection, in exchange for binding myself to a man who dealt in death. A man who'd admitted he was selfish and dangerous and completely wrong for me. A man who'd kissed me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. If I agree, I said slowly, I need to know something. Anything. When you look at me, do you see her? Elena? The question hung in the air. Dante was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, no. Elena was soft, gentle. She saw the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. He moved behind me, his warmth seeping into my back. You're fire and steel. You looked at me in that alley and saw exactly what I was, and you still found the courage to fight back. You're nothing like her. Is that a good thing? It's everything. His arms came around me, pulling me against his chest. Elena couldn't survive my world. But you... His lips brushed my temple. You were made for it. You just don't know it yet. I leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my back, and made a choice that would either save me or destroy me. Okay, I whispered. Okay? I'll marry you. I turned in his arms, meeting his dark eyes. But I have conditions. Something like relief flooded his features. Name them. No more lies. If you're going to drag me into your world, I want the truth. All of it. The business, the danger, everything. Done. And I want access to resources. Money, lawyers, protection for my people. I want to be able to help them if something goes wrong. Anything you need. And I hesitated, then pressed on. I want you to actually try. At this. At us. Not just possession or protection. If I'm going to be your wife, I want a real marriage. Eventually. His expression softened. You're asking if I can love you. I'm asking if you're willing to try. He studied me for a long moment, then pulled a ring from his pocket, not the emerald from earlier, but something else. A simple platinum band set with a single diamond, elegant and understated. This was my grandmother's, he said quietly, given to her by my grandfather when they married during the war. She told me once to only give it to a woman worth fighting for. He slid it onto my finger beside the emerald. I think she knew, even before I did. The weight of the ring felt like a promise and a threat all at once. So we're really doing this? I asked. We're really doing this. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. Tomorrow, I'll call a priest. We'll make it official before the Rossis can move. And then, his phone rang, shattering the moment. He cursed and answered. What? Then his expression changed to something terrible. When? How many? He listened for another moment, then hung up, his face ashen. What happened? I asked, fear spiking through me. The Rossis just hit Romano's. They took hostages. His voice was ice. And they're demanding you in exchange. No, Dante's voice was absolute. You're not going anywhere near that restaurant. They have Lisa. Marco. People I've worked with for 3 years. My voice rose. They're there because of me, Dante. I can't just... You can, and you will. He was already moving, grabbing weapons from a hidden safe, his movements precise and lethal. I'll handle this. How? By storming in with guns blazing? They'll kill the hostages the moment they see you coming. I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me. But they won't kill me. Not immediately. I'm what they want. Exactly. Which is why you're staying here where you're safe. Safe? I laughed bitterly. No one is safe, Dante. You said it yourself, this world doesn't do safety. It does power and leverage and impossible choices. I stepped closer. So let me make mine. Sophie, I'll wear a wire. Your men can position themselves around the building. The moment they have a clear shot, they take it. But I go in first. I buy you time to save them. And if something goes wrong, if they decide to kill you anyway, the desperation in his voice cracked something open in my chest. Then you make them pay for it. I cupped his face, this beautiful broken man who'd become my entire world in less than a day. But those people don't deserve to die because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Let me do this. Let me save them. I can't lose you. The confession was raw, stripped of all pretense. Not now. Not when I've just found you. You won't. I kissed him, pouring everything I couldn't say into the touch. I'm not Elena, remember? I'm fire and steel. I can survive this. He kissed me back desperately, then pulled away, his jaw clenched. If you do this, you follow my lead. Every instruction, no matter how crazy it sounds. Understood? Understood. 20 minutes later, I was wired, armed with a small knife Dante insisted I keep strapped to my thigh, and sitting in the back of an SUV driven by one of his most trusted men. The Rossis are expecting you alone, Dante said through the earpiece hidden in my ear. They'll search you for weapons and wires. The knife is small enough to miss if they're sloppy. The wire is state-of-the-art undetectable, unless they're specifically looking. And if they find it, silence. Then, don't let them find it. The restaurant came into view. Its cheerful Christmas lights a grotesque contrast to the danger inside. I could see shadows moving through the windows, figures huddled on the floor. My friends, my family, in every way that mattered. I'm going in, I said, reaching for the door handle. Wait. Dante's voice was strained. Sophie, whatever happens in there, whatever you see or hear, remember that I'm coming for you. Nothing will stop me. Do you understand? I understand. And Sophie? A pause. I think I'm falling in love with you. The confession hit me like a physical blow. Before I could respond, the line went silent, leaving me alone with those impossible words echoing in my head. I stepped out of the SUV and walked toward the restaurant on shaking legs. The door opened before I reached it. A man I didn't recognize stood there, gun in hand, his smile cold. Miss Bennett, so glad you could join us. Please come in. Inside, the restaurant had been transformed into a nightmare. Tables were overturned. Glass littered the floor. My coworkers huddled against the wall, bound and gagged, their eyes wide with terror when they saw me. Lisa was crying, mascara streaking down her face. Marco had blood on his shirt. Tony, the line cook who always made me laugh, looked like he'd been beaten, and standing in the center of it all was a man who could only be the head of the Rossi family. He was perhaps 60, distinguished in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. He looked like a banker, not a monster. Sophie Bennett, he said pleasantly. Thank you for coming. I'm Alessandro Rossi. I believe you witnessed something that belongs to me. A man being executed, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. Yes, I saw it. And you understand that this creates a problem for me? For my family? I understand that you're terrifying innocent people because one of your men made a mistake. His eyebrows rose. A mistake? He stole from the Moretti family. That's not a mistake, Miss Bennett. That's treason. And treason carries consequences. So does kidnapping and threatening civilians. Ah, but you're not a civilian anymore, are you? He circled me slowly, assessing. You're wearing Dante Moretti's ring. 2 rings, in fact. How interesting. I fought the urge to hide my hands. Let them go. This is between your family and his. They have nothing to do with it. On the contrary, they have everything to do with it. Their leverage. He stopped in front of me. You see, I don't actually care about you, Miss Bennett. You're a waitress. A nobody. Your testimony means nothing without evidence, without proof. But your connection to Dante Moretti? That's valuable. Cold dread washed over me. What do you want? Information. Shipping routes, account numbers, the locations of his safe houses. Everything you've learned since becoming his. What did he call you? His future wife? I don't know anything. We only just... Don't lie to me. His hand shot out, gripping my jaw painfully. Dante Moretti doesn't marry nobodies without reason. He trusts you with something. And you're going to tell me what it is? Or I start killing your friends. One by one. Starting with the pretty one who's crying. Lisa sobbed behind her gag. I don't know anything, I repeated, my heart hammering. I swear. Wrong answer. He nodded to one of his men, who moved toward Lisa with his gun raised. Wait! The word tore from my throat. Wait. There's a safe house. In the woods. That's where we were tonight. I can give you the location. Dante's voice crackled in my ear. Good girl. Keep him talking. Alessandro smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. Where exactly? I rattled off coordinates that Dante fed me through the earpiece, false ones, leading to an abandoned property rigged with surveillance. And what else? Alessandro pressed. What other secrets has dear Dante shared with his blushing bride? Account numbers. Offshore. He has money hidden in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Malta. Locations. I want exact locations. As I fed him false information, I saw movement through the window. Shadows positioning themselves. Dante's men, getting into place. Almost there. You know, Alessandro said conversationally, I don't believe you. I think you're stalling. Which means, the window exploded inward. Gunfire erupted. I dropped to the floor as chaos consumed the restaurant. Screaming, breaking glass, the sharp crack of weapons discharging. Hands grabbed me one of Rossi's men, dragging me toward the back. I fumbled for the knife at my thigh, my fingers clumsy with adrenaline. Found it, drove it into his side. He screamed and released me. I scrambled away, trying to reach my coworkers. But the smoke and chaos disoriented me. Then Dante was there, appearing through the smoke like an avenging angel. He took down 2 men without breaking stride, his movements brutal and efficient. Sophie! He reached me, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? I'm fine, the others. My men are getting them out. Come on. He pulled me toward the exit, but Alessandro stepped into our path, gun raised. How touching, he sneered. The monster finally found something to care about. Tell me, Moretti, was she worth it? Worth starting a war? Yes, Dante said simply, positioning himself between us. She was worth everything. Alessandro's smile was vicious. Then you'll understand why I have to take her from you. The way you took everything from me. His finger moved to the trigger. I saw it happening in slow motion, Dante lunging, Alessandro firing, the bullet that would end everything, but it never reached us. Marco, my coworker. Marco, who I'd worked with for 3 years, threw himself between us. The bullet hit him square in the chest, and he went down hard. No! I screamed. Dante fired. Alessandro fell. The restaurant went silent, except for the ringing in my ears, and my own ragged breathing. Marco lay bleeding on the floor, his eyes finding mine. You, okay? Don't talk. Tears streamed down my face. Help is coming. You're going to be fine. But we both knew he wasn't. Tell, Sarah. I loved her, he whispered. His fiancée. The woman he'd shown me pictures of just days ago. Then his eyes went empty, and he was gone. I knelt there in the ruins of my old life, holding a dead man who'd saved me, and finally understood the true cost of Dante's world. It didn't just destroy the people in it, it destroyed everyone they touched. The chapel was empty, except for us. 3 days had passed since the massacre at Romano's. 3 days of funerals, police statements carefully crafted by lawyers who cost more per hour than I used to make in a month, and hollow condolences from people who didn't understand that sorry couldn't resurrect the dead. Marco's funeral had been yesterday. I'd stood in the back, watching Sarah collapse against his casket, and felt the weight of every choice that had led to this moment crushing down on my chest. Now I stood in a private chapel on the Moretti estate, wearing a dress the color of fresh snow, about to marry the man responsible for all of it. You don't have to do this, Dante said quietly. He stood beside me in a black suit, looking as exhausted as I felt. We hadn't touched since the restaurant, hadn't kissed, barely spoken beyond logistics and legal necessities. The distance between us felt like a chasm. Yes, I do. My voice was hollow. The Rossis are contained but not destroyed. You said marriage was the only way to fully protect everyone I care about. So here I am. Sophie, don't. I finally looked at him, and something in my expression made him flinch. Don't pretend this is about anything other than survival. You were right all along. Love is a liability. Elena knew it. Marco proved it. And my voice cracked. I was stupid enough to think I could be different. You are different. Am I? Because a good man is dead because of me. Because I witnessed something I shouldn't have. Because you decided I was worth keeping. The words came out bitter, laced with 3 days of grief and guilt. How many more people have to die before I'm safe, Dante? How many more Marcos? His jaw clenched. None. Alessandro Rossi is dead. His lieutenants are either dead or running. The threat is neutralized. Until the next one. until someone else decides to use the people I love as leverage. I turned away, staring at the simple altar. This is my life now, isn't it? Always looking over my shoulder, always wondering who'll pay the price for my existence. Yes. No comfort, no lies, just brutal honesty. That's exactly what it is. And if you want to walk away, if you want me to release you from this, and go where? I laughed, the sound empty. Back to my apartment that the Rossis violated? Back to a restaurant that's now a crime scene? Back to a life where everyone I know has been touched by violence because of me? I shook my head. There is no walking away. You made sure of that when you decided I was worth saving. I'd make the same choice again. His voice was rough. Even knowing what it cost, even watching you look at me like I'm a monster, I'd still choose you. Why? I spun to face him. Why me, Dante? I'm nobody. Just a waitress who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You could have, because you're the first person in 5 years who made me want to be something other than this. He closed the distance between us, his hands framing my face with desperate gentleness. Because when you looked at me in that alley, you saw a killer, and you still found the courage to fight. Because you made me laugh in the garden, made me hope in the car, made me feel something other than emptiness for the first time since Elena died. Tears burned behind my eyes. That's not enough. Hope and laughter don't bring people back from the dead. No, they don't. His thumbs brushed away tears I hadn't realized were falling. But they're all I have to offer you. That and my protection, my resources, my complete and utter devotion to keeping you alive. Devotion. The word tasted like ash. Is that what you call this? I call it love. The confession was raw, stripped bare, messy, violent, completely inadequate love. The kind that gets people killed and ruins lives and destroys everything it touches. But it's real, Sophie. And it's yours, if you want it. I stared at him, this beautiful, broken man who'd dragged me into hell and somehow made me want to stay, who'd offered me protection wrapped in violence, safety bought with blood, love that came with a body count. I hate you, I whispered. I know. I hate that Marco died, that Lisa is traumatized, that my entire life has been turned inside out because you couldn't let me go. I know, and I hate that despite all of it, despite everything, my voice broke. I still want you. I still choose this. Choose you. How messed up is that? His forehead dropped to mine. Pretty messed up. We're disasters. Absolute catastrophes. This is going to be the worst marriage in history. Probably. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. But it'll be ours. I kissed him, then not with passion or heat, but with something deeper. Grief and anger and reluctant acceptance all tangled together. He kissed me back with equal desperation, his hands gentle despite the violence they were capable of. When we broke apart, the priest was standing in the doorway, ancient and patient. Are we ready? He asked in accented English. I looked at Dante. Really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The guilt he carried. The love he was offering despite knowing it might destroy us both. No, I said honestly. But let's do it anyway. The ceremony was brief, the words ancient and binding. When Dante slid the final ring onto my finger, a wedding band that matched his grandmother's engagement ring, I felt the weight of it like a shackle and a promise all at once. You may kiss your bride. Dante's kiss was gentle, reverent, nothing like the desperate claiming in the cabin. This was a vow, a promise that transcended words. When we pulled apart, we were no longer just Sophie and Dante. We were Mr. and Mrs. Moretti, bound by law, protected by blood, trapped in a world that devoured the innocent and spit out survivors. What happens now? I asked as we left the chapel. Now? Dante's hand found mine, our rings catching the morning light. Now I spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the sacrifice you just made. And if you can't be, then I'll settle for keeping you alive and relatively happy. He pulled me close, his voice dropping. I meant what I said in there, Sophie. I love you. Messily. Violently. Completely. And I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you never regret choosing me. I already regret it, I said honestly. But I choose it anyway. Choose you anyway. Because apparently, I'm just as broken as you are. His smile was sad and beautiful. Lucky me. We walked back toward the manor, hand in hand. And I realized with startling clarity that I'd meant what I said. I did hate him for dragging me into this world, for the deaths and the danger and the loss of everything I'd been, but I also loved him for the same reasons, because he'd seen me, truly seen me, and decided I was worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth becoming a monster for, and in his dark, twisted way, he'd given me something I'd never had before. A place to belong. A purpose beyond survival. Someone who would burn the world down before letting anyone hurt me. It was toxic and codependent, and probably doomed. But it was ours. Ahead, Nana waited on the terrace, her wheelchair positioned to catch the morning sun. When she saw us, she smiled the knowing, satisfied smile of someone who'd orchestrated this exact outcome. Finalmente, she said. Finally. Come, let me look at you properly. My grandson's wife. My new granddaughter. She pulled me down for a kiss on each cheek, then held my hands, studying the rings with approval. You'll be good for him, she said quietly. You'll keep him human. Keep him from becoming the monster he fears. What if I can't? I asked. Then you'll be monsters together. Her smile was almost gentle. But at least you won't be alone. Behind me, Dante's hand settled on my waist, possessive and protective, and I leaned into him, accepting the truth I'd been fighting since that alley. This was my life now. Beautiful and terrible, and completely insane. But mine.